Recompenses began to be noised about with more frequency. Life in the city was mingled with a series of alarms as the Queen's agents sought to uproot conspirators. Wild shouts and the clatter of running feet often shattered the silence of the streets during the darkest hour of night. Then would come an insistent pounding of a heavy fist upon a solidly bolted door, followed by torchlit interrogations that sometimes resulted in multiple hangings and the display of severed heads on London Bridge. The attempts on the Queen's life did not cease, but seemed to roil up from the nether realms of the earth. Mary Stuart was a prisoner of England, and Elizabeth Tudor was on the throne, and one was as much in danger of losing her life as the other. November the 7th, 1585. Near the village of Burford, Oxfordshire, England. The tiny flames of myriad squat candles frolicked in jubilant accord with the wedding guests as they stepped in lively time to the courant. The festive music of the performing minstrels filled the great room of Bradbury Hall, blending with the revelrous laughter of the lords and their ladies. There was indeed much cause for celebration, for the oft-arranged betrothals and much cancelled weddings of the beauteous Arabella Stamford had finally resulted in a successful union. Just as amazing was the fact that no great disaster had yet befallen the brave swain who had so zealously sought her hand these past months. Of the 6 who had previously held the distinction of being the lady's betrothed, none were known to be alive, including the late Marquess of Bradbury, in whose country estate the guests now celebrated. Ryland Huxford, the Earl of Chadwick, had decried the possibility of a curse on one so fair, and had rushed recklessly on with his courtship, heedless of the dire fates of those who had preceded him. Now triumphantly wed, he stood joined to his bride by a garland of green, while all around them leather-bound tankards and silver goblets were lifted in boisterous toast to the newly espoused couple. The strong ales and heady wines did much to warm the spirits and encourage the jovial moods, and servants hastened to tap fresh casks of the dark ale and hogsheads of claret and sack, lest the excitement flag and fade. Edward Stamford was ecstatic at having finally gained a son-in-law of both wealth and title, but the giving of his daughter's hand had not been accomplished without a certain measure of pain. Reluctantly, he had conceded that the wedding banquet warranted more than the usual staples, and under his baleful eye, huge trenchers of suckling pig, stuffed goat, and gaudily adorned birds were set before the ravenous guests. He winced in miserly distress as the succulent meats, elaborate puddings, and tasty sweetmeats were devoured with impartial gluttony by those who had come to indulge in his rare display of largesse. But if any took note of their host's lack of appetite, they kept such observations in reserve. It was an uncommon day indeed when Edward Stamford appeared kindly disposed toward anyone. Rather, it was said of him that he was something of an opportunist, who had acquired his wealth through the misfortunes or follies of others. No one could aver that these windfalls had occurred through any clever manipulations of his, but Edward was always eager to seize whatever harvest he could wrench from those who had carefully sown and nurtured. His most noteworthy, if vocally reluctant, donor was the erstwhile Lord of Bradbury Hall. No one was cognizant of the supreme sacrifice Edward had been required to make in order to divert attention from his own involvement in the murder of the Queen's agent. By casting the blame on Seymour, he had dismally foreseen relinquishing every honour and advantage he had once aspired to gain from his daughter's union with the man. It was the very least he would lose if he was successful, he had realised, and if he failed, well, the dangers to himself had been too enormous to even entertain. Not only had there been a threat of reprisal from her sovereign majesty, but the Marquis had for some time been touted as the finest of the Queen's champions, and tales of his prowess with a sword had been well published.